Hey guys, in this video the brilliant Mr. B is going to be taking you through how to work out the equation of a circle. Now this video, the 9 examples in this video are pitched at a level for GCSE further maths, or if you want an introduction to A-level maths you could use this over the summer. Now there are loads more examples just waiting for you to practice over on my website if you want some more questions.
We are going to revise finding the equations of circles, and the basic circle equation is x squared plus y squared equals r squared, where r is the radius of the circle. It's kind of like how wide the circle is. When we look at the question, for the centre and radius of the circle, and we have x minus 5 in brackets squared plus y minus 5 in brackets squared equals 16. Now, this actually follows the same format of the simplest circle equation, the x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And the way that works is that the x squared is really x minus 0 squared. The y squared is really y minus 0 squared. And the r squared is fine as it is. And what you'll find is that the numbers in here represent the center of the circle. So for a basic circle equation, the center is 0, 0. The radius of the circle is just r. So you need to find the square root of r squared to find the radius. So I might actually write it down in that format just to make it make a little bit more sense. So the radius is the square root of r squared. So now let's have a look at our question. So I'm going to write it out again. X minus 5 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 16. So when we're trying to find the center of this circle, again, we have a look at the two numbers. So we've got a 5 and a 5. And you'll notice I'm ignoring the negative symbols. I'm ignoring the takeaways. I'm just taking the number themselves. So the center of this circle is 5 on the x-axis and 5 on the y-axis. The radius of this circle is the square root of the number at the end, the equals. You can see in the generalization of the formula, it says r squared, so the 16 corresponds to the r squared. The radius is the square root of 16, and that's 4. Because 4 times 4 is 16. 4 squared is 16, working in the direction. So find the center and radius of x minus 5 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 16. The center of the circle is at 5, 5, and the radius is 4. The next circle we have is x plus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 169. So again, I'm going to write it out again, and we're going to kind of match it up to our example. So for the center, again, we're looking for the numbers in the brackets. So the center, the x coordinate is going to be negative 2. And the y-coordinate is going to be a positive 1. Now remember the last example, I was ignoring the takeaway signs. So effectively, it's the opposite sign for your answer. So yeah, for the y-coordinate, I'm ignoring the negative sign. But for the x-coordinate, there isn't a negative sign. There's a positive sign. So that's the opposite. So what you'll find is if you have a positive in the bracket, it'll be a negative answer, and a negative in the bracket, it'll be a positive answer. So the center is negative 2, 1. The radius is going to be the square root of 169. 169, it's 13 times 13, or 13 squared. For the next question, we have x plus 9 all squared plus y plus 7 all squared equals 81. So we want to find the center of the circle first. For the center, you're going to look at the numbers in the brackets. We've got a 9 and we've got a 7. So we can write those in. But remember, it's going to be the opposite sign. So if in the brackets we have a positive 9, then it's going to be a negative 9 in the answer. If it's a positive 7 in the brackets, then it'll be a negative 7 in the answer. Again, make sure you flip the signs. If it's a negative, it becomes a positive. If it's a positive, it becomes a negative. Moving on to the radius. The radius is the square root of the number at the end. So it'll be the square root of 81. Well, 9 times 9 is 81. So the square root of 81 is going to be 9. So we find the center and we find the radius. Moving on to the next question. Again, write out the equation you're given. We want it in the form x minus a squared plus y minus b squared equals r squared. So we need to read through the question and find A, find B, and find R. So the A and B refer to the center of the circle. So A is going to be 8, and b is going to be 5. Let's write them in. But this time for the radius, we're not told what the radius is, and instead we've got a different clue. We have a random point on the edge of a circle. So we need to figure out the radius ourselves. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to measure the difference. So the centre of the circle is at 8, 5, and our point is at 10, 2. So it's going to look something like this line. So let's label it. We are starting at 10, 2. We are finishing at 8, 5. So how do we find the difference? So if you remember the video on midpoints, the medium difficulty questions in midpoints video were about finding the length of a line, and it's going to be the same method here. So all we're going to do is we're going to find the difference in y, and we're going to find the difference in x to form a triangle. Looking at the difference in y, we have 2 and 5. That's increasing by 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. And looking in the difference in x, we're going from 10 to 8. So that's negative 2, going down by 2. Now, that being negative isn't really relevant to this, so we can leave it as it is, or we can get rid of the negative symbol, because what we're going to do here is use Pythagoras Theorem to find the longest side. We call the longest side C, other two sides we can call A and B in any order. I'm going to write down Pythagoras Theorem. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A squared is negative 2 squared, which is 4. Remember, negative times negative is positive. That's why I said that the negative measurements don't really have any relevance here. B squared is going to be 3 squared, which is 9. And so 4 plus 9 is going to give us 15. So C squared is equal to 15. That means that the C is the square root of that. So C is a square root of 15. So now we found what the radius is. So let's substitute. So we know that A is 8, we know that B is 5, we know that the radius is the square root of 15. Let's fill in the rest, and we look if there's anything we can simplify. The brackets look fine, there's no double negative signs or anything like that to clean up, so we can leave the brackets as they are. But at the end, we've got the square root of 15 squared. Now, square roots and squareds cancel each other out, they're inverse operations, so we can just write the 15. We don't need to do any maths there. The symbols have cancelled themselves out. So our final answer is x minus 8 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 15. The next example works the same way. So we're going to write down our equation ready for substitution. We're going to identify what A, B, and R are. So again, A and B refer to the centre. A is negative 9 and B is 3. So the R, we've not been told the R, but we'll be given a point on the edge of the circle so we can work out the length ourselves. Now again, it's going to be useful to draw a triangle to visualize this. Let's label where we start, negative 12, 6. Label where we end at negative 9, 3, and then draw the rest of the triangle. Let's look at the X coordinates first. So we have negative 12 to negative 9. That's going up by 3. Then look at the y coordinates. We're going from 6 to 3. That's going down by 3. And by the way, the starting point of this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you measure from the point to the centre or the centre to the point. It's going to be the same distance. So let's write down Pythagoras Theorem. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. With C being the longest side, the one we're trying to find, and A and B being the other two sides in any order. So A squared is 3 squared, which is 9. B squared is negative 3 squared, which negative 3 times negative 3 is going to be 9 as well. Remember, negative times negative is a positive. Altogether, that equals C squared, which is 18. So if C squared is equal to 18, C must be equal to the square root of 18. And that is what the radius is. So now let's substitute. A is negative 9. B is 3. And the radius is a square root of 18. Let's fill in the rest of the equation. And remember to include the takeaway sign separately to any negatives that are on the numbers. Now let's have a look through for anything we can simplify. So in the first bracket, we've got a double negative. So rather than being take away negative 9, it's going to be plus 9. Negative and negative make a positive. Second bracket's fine. At the end, a square root and a square cancel out. So we just write the 18. So the final answer is x plus 9 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 18. Now moving on to the hard questions, I'm going to find the equation of the tangent to the circle. So what does the equation of the tangent to the circle mean? Well, we have a circle here and we have the centre of the circle. Now what we can do is we can draw a radius So this is a radius. Now, it doesn't really matter which way this points. It's going to be a radius no matter which edge of the circle it joins onto. But for a tangent, what a tangent is a point that just touches where that radius touches the edge of the circle at a right angle. So it's going to look something like this. This is a sketch. It's a little bit off, but this should be a right angle for this to be a tangent. So if we label them, we've got the radius and we've got the tangent to the circle. And again, they both meet at this point where the tangent touches the circle and the radius ends at the end of the circle. So how do we find the gradient of this? Well, the first thing to do is we're going to find the gradient, therefore the equation of the radius. So let's do some calculations for the radius first. So let's draw another line for this. And let's label what we have. So the center of the circle is at -1, 7. And again, that is the opposite of the numbers that are in the bracket. So rather than a +1, I've got -1. Rather than a -7, I've got a +7. Then we have got the tangent. Now that is at -5, 8. So what we want to do is we want to find the gradient of this line, the steepness of this line. So how do we do that? Well, you might want to look at the video on finding gradients. It's going to be the same method. Basically, you want to find the change in y divided by the change in x. So let's find those first. With x, we are going from -5 to -1. That's a distance of 4. With the y coordinates, we're going from 8 to 7. So that is -1. Now, the negative here is really important. So make sure with both of these, you're starting and ending in the same place. We're starting at -5, 8, and we are ending at -1, 7. So to find the gradient of this line, it's going to be y divided by x for a gradient. The y movement is -1. The x movement is 4. So that is -1/4. So that is the gradient of the tangent. So we could name it y equals -1/4 x, and there'll be plus c because we don't know what the y-intercept is. Now we could work out the y-intercept by substituting it in -1 and 7, but we're not going to need that because for a tangent, if you did the video on gradients, you know the tangent is a negative reciprocal of the gradient of the normal line. So for the tangent, let's do this working out in purple. The gradient of the tangent, we take the -1/4 and we find a negative reciprocal, which is basically flipping the fraction upside down and reversing the sign. So it's going to be a positive 4/1. So let's write down what I've done. I found the negative reciprocal to find the tangent. And the way we explain this is that this is a perpendicular line and it's perpendicular to the radius. So this is the method we use for perpendicular lines in the gradient video. So now what we need to do is we write down the format of equations, which is y is equal to mx plus c. That's the format for straight line equations at least. We know that m is going to be 4/1, and we can simplify that. 4/1 is 4. So we can write y is equal to 4x plus c. And then to work out the plus c, we're substituting the values of x and y. Now we have two sets of values for x and y, but the ones we want are the ones for the tangent, which is -5, 8. So we're going to write y is equal to 4 multiplied by -5. And actually, I didn't substitute the y, so let's rub that out. The y was 8. So we can simplify the equation. 4 times -5 is -20. So 8 is equal to -20 plus c. And then we can solve the equation. We just need to add 20 to both sides. 8 plus 20 is 28. -20 plus 20 is 0. That's why we did it. And we've got the c. So c is equal to 28. All we need to do now is write the final answer. So the final answer is y is equal to 4x plus 28. So it's quite a lot to look at here. So basically, we need to be aware that the tangent is perpendicular to the radius. That means this is a right angle. We need to work out the gradient of the radius by using a triangle, like we just did, and comparing the point on the edge and the point in the center. And then we can find the gradient of the tangent by taking the negative reciprocal of the gradient of the radius. All we need to do at that point is substitute into the equation to find c to get our final answer. y is equal to 4x plus 28. So moving on to the next question, let's try and get the working out a little bit neater now. So firstly, we want to find the equation of the tangent of the circle, x minus 5 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 25, and then the tangent is at 2, -1. So the first thing we need to do is find the equation of the radius. So I'm going to draw the radius, sketch it out, and I'll label it. So the centre of the circle is at 5, 2. Again, remembering it's the opposites of the numbers in the brackets. -5, -2. The opposite is 5, 2. And the tangent is at 2, -2. So we need to find the gradient, look at the difference in x and the difference in y. Let's find the difference in x first. So looking at the x coordinates, we've got 5 and 2. So going from 5 to 2, that's -3. Then we look at the y coordinates, going from 2 to -2. So that's going to be take away 4. And with both of those, I started and finished with the same set of coordinates. Started with the 5 and the 2, and ended with the 2 and the -2. You might also notice that my sketch is wrong because with the x coordinates, I'm going from 5 to 2, but I'm moving to the right, where the numbers should be getting bigger and going to the right, not smaller. So really the triangle should be the other way around. But it's just a sketch, and we've worked out the numbers, so that's not actually an issue. The gradient is going to be the difference in y over the difference in x. The difference in y was -4. The difference in x was -3. And we can simplify that. If the numerator and the denominator are both negative, then they're going to cancel out. So we can just write 4/3 as the gradient. The equation of the radius is going to be y is equal to 4/3 x plus c. But we've not been asked to find the equation of the radius. We just need the gradient actually to move on. So we can just leave the c as it is. We don't need to work it out. If you did want to find it, you'd substitute in the 5 and the 2. So moving on, we're going to find the equation of the tangent. So it's going to be y equals mx plus c. Now, looking at the gradient, we're going to start off with our 4/3, and we want to find the negative reciprocal. That's going to mean find the reciprocal, flipping the fraction upside down, and the negative part, we're going to flip the sign from positive to negative. So we can say the equation of the tangent is y is equal to -3/4 x plus c. And we do need to work out what c is this time, so we're going to substitute in values for x and y. Now don't substitute in the centre because that's not a point on the line. It's got to be the point on the tangent, the 2 and -2. So y is -2, x is +2. Simplify the multiplication first, so that gives us -2 is equal to, so multiply by 2, just multiply the numerator by 2, that'll be -6/4 plus c. And then what we need to do now is we need to add 6/4 to both sides to get c on its own. So -2 plus 6/4, well, there's a whole one in there, isn't there? 4/4 is a whole one. There'll be 2/4 left over, and 2/4 is a half. So 6/4 is actually 1.5. So -2 plus 1.5, there's going to be -1/2 left over. So now we can write down our final answer because we know c. It'll be y is equal to -3/4 x, which was the gradient we worked out earlier, take away 1/2, which is the value of c that we've just worked out. And that's our final answer. So now look at the final question. We want to find the equation of a tangent to a circle. So the first thing to do is to find the equation of the radius. So label what you're doing and do a little sketch of the radius. And the radius is going from 5,5 to 9,7. So for this one, we don't have the equation of a circle. We've just been told what the centre is. Actually, this question should be a slightly easier question. So we need to find the change in y divided by the change in x to find the gradient. So we're going to have a look at our line. We're going to turn it into a triangle. Look at the difference in x and the difference in y. So the difference in y was starting with 5 and we're ending at 7. So we're adding 2. With the difference in x, we are starting at 5, ending at 9. We are adding 4. The gradient is a change in y over the change in x. So y is 2, x is 4, 2/4 is the gradient. And we can simplify that, it's 1/4. So the equation of the radius is y is equal to half x plus c. And again, we don't need to work out what the c is. Moving on to the equation of the tangent. First, we're going to have a look at the gradient we have. We have a half. So for the tangent, it's going to be the negative reciprocal. So flip the fraction upside down and change the sign. Positive to negative. Then think about if you can simplify it. Well, 2 divided by 1 is just 2. so the gradient is going to be -2. So for our tangent, it's going to be y is equal to mx plus c. So we know that m is -2. We just need to work out what c is. So we're substituting values x and y, and it's not going to be from the centre because that's not on the tangent. It has to be a point on the tangent to substitute it. So it's going to be the 9 and the 7 that we substitute. Y is 7, x is 9. Clean up the equation by doing the multiplication. -2 times 9 is -18. The 7 is equal to -18 plus c. Solve the equation. So let's add 18 to both sides. And 7 plus 18 is going to give us 25. So c is 25. All we need to do at the end is write down our final answer. Y is equal to -2x plus 25.
Ouch! This is why in some videos I have unexplained scratches.